Hey, what's up? It's me, Meanie Mosey. Welcome to my channel. Glad to see that you could join us today. We are going to be talking about One Piece chapter 1136, and in this one, we kind of have a lot of kind of background dropping. Nothing has really started happening yet, but I feel like we're on the precipice of getting into it and everything. So, in this breakdown, review, analysis, whatever, I want to talk about Usopp. I want to talk about Elbaf's worldview. I want to talk about Loki and being the sun god and all of that. I want to talk about Nika in general. And then at the end, I'm going to cover some of the final scenes that happen within this chapter. And we're going to finish off with some good old predictions and thoughts and things like that. So, first getting into it, Usopp starts off the chapter. He's back to his old lies again, saying that he single-handedly took down oars and everything. Glad to have you back, buddy. Haven't seen you in a while. I feel like Usopp is going to grow a lot in this chapter, or we're gonna see a lot from him in this chapter, given that Elbaf is the island that he has been obsessed with since before even Chopper joined the crew. I have a prediction that I'm gonna get into at the end of this video, once I drop more of the context and my thoughts through the video. But yeah, I feel like we're overdue for an awesome Usopp moment. He's always talked about everything that he's learned from the Giants. I assume that he's come here thinking that he's going to learn some more. I can assume his heart's a little bit dashed, hearing now how Elbaf has gone peaceful now and they're not the warriors that they used to be, or they're trying to stray away from it and everything. But we're just going to see how that affects him. Because his dream was to become a brave warrior of the sea, and now he's here on the former island of warriors. So we'll see what that does to him and how he changes throughout this arc. Going more into Elbaf and their worldview now, how they have switched sides and everything. We learned that a lot of giants have only stayed on Elbaf in their entire lives. There's the giant pirates and there's the new giant pirates, but all of them aren't pirates, and so you have a lot of them who have only stayed there, which makes sense because other islands aren't accommodating for giants. Like, what could they do there really? Like, tiny food, tiny houses. We do have giants who have joined the Marines, but for the most part it seems like they're all staying on the island, and they don't have that much interaction with humans because the humans that do visit the island assume that the underworld is the only part of the island, and they flee and they run away. They never make it to Elbaf proper. Unless you're someone like Ripley's husband, who may or may not be on the island, we don't know. So they have a pretty narrow worldview. They're all kind of fascinated with the crew right now. They might be the first humans that some of the people who haven't left the island have seen in a while. And I noticed that, well, I mean, I know some of the giants have fought before. They're the giant pirates and everything. They were just kind of fighting in Egghead recently, but I feel like they're not necessarily peaceful. They're all just united against Loki right now, because I mean, there's a difference between the kids who are like so anti-violent. They don't even name call anyone or anything. They're just like non-verbal violence, no physical violence, no emotional violence. They're just like so far removed from it. But you have the adults who, when you start talking about Nika and what Nika represents and everything like that, they actually started fighting each other. Like, that's the one thing that they'll fight about. And so whenever you bring up Nika, they start fighting. Whenever you bring up Loki, they're united against him. They're all like, don't say that he's a good guy. You don't have to justify his actions. They're all kind of united against Loki. And that has created a sense of peace. I had this thought because I just saw Wicked in theaters, and there was one point where Oz said the one way to bring people together was to give them a common enemy. And so I feel like the Giants definitely have a common enemy now, and so any kind of squabbles that they had before, they're all kind of forgotten, since the one person who's responsible for majority of their problems, they have agreed on who that is. Talking about all of their problems, it goes through an entire list of things that happened ever since Loki was born. There was a prophecy against him before he was even born. He's played tricks on everybody. The king's horse died. His mother died a year after he was born. So I feel like they're all putting it on him. So it's all like a false correlation. Like, since they said he was going to be a cursed prince, they're all kind of just assuming that anything bad happens is a result of him being there, which is kind of awful just to be blamed out of the gate, like even in the womb, for things that are going to happen. But he was also a very strong child to begin with. I'm thinking like Lin, like Odin, and like Kaido. All of those people, they had very hard childhoods because of how strong they were, and no one could really control them in their power. And being young and powerful, they kind of just ran amok. So I'm feeling that Loki was kind of the same way. It looks like he is also a trickster, kind of like I predicted in the last video. Loki, the Norse god of trickery, or the trickster god, I don't know. But kind of like MCU Loki, kind of there to stir up trouble and everything like that. We're going to see how close he is to him. And then we learn also that Shanks captured him 6 years ago and that he's been chained to a tree ever since. And so I was asking about the timeline in my last video. I'm still going to have to think about it because I'm trying to wonder. He must have proposed to Lola after he fled Elbaf and was a pirate on the seas. So that's got to have happened within the past 4 years or so. One other thing was that I saw when it was depicting Loki as a child, it had this black form. We saw the black form, like a black globulous being standing in front of fire, smiling. We saw him doing the Gear 5 pose a little bit. This time he had a hat on, in the Norse braids and everything. And we also saw that kind of shape or that form when he was proposing to Lola, in the one panel that it showed that in. And so I'm wondering if that is a way that Oda is drawing him to kind of add some mystery about his character like he's done before, or is that actually a form that Loki can take on or something like that? Is that what he actually looked like, or is that just kind of it adding like an air of mystery to him? I don't know. But anyway, moving on. So since Elbaf is somewhat united against Loki and everything, and they blame him for the king's death. Well, I mean, he did kill the king. So I'm wondering why they haven't moved on from that. Because if that was truly 6 years ago, and they still don't have another king, and they were talking about how great King Harold was and how he was doing great work to expand Elbaf to other countries and show them that they weren't the warriors that they assumed they were, or that they weren't as dangerous as people would assume them to be and everything. If he was doing such great work, I'm wondering why nobody stepped up to continue. Now granted, Hyrudine was kind of erased from all of their memories. So for a time, Loki was the only son that the king had because Hyrudine was cursed. He was under Sugar's spell. People did not even remember that he existed, and he just came back, I would say maybe a couple months ago in the One Piece timeline. Maybe weeks, maybe a month, I don't know. People just remembered Hyrudine. Hyrudine has been off with the new giant pirates since he came back into people's memories. Other than that, the only royalty was Loki, and they weren't going to put him on the throne since he was responsible for killing the king in the first place. And so I'm wondering why someone like Gerald didn't step up, or I don't know when Dory and Broggy got back, but they were the captains of the giant pirates. I don't know why. Well, I mean, I guess just being captains of a pirate crew does not entitle you to be a king at Doflamingo. But yeah, I'm wondering why the throne has been empty. I'm wondering why they haven't moved on. And they've kind of just stayed stagnant for the past 6 years. I'm wondering what's going on there. Why haven't they replaced the king? Hopefully that gets answered. Hopefully. And it's not just kind of like a fact of the world that people just accept. Talking more about Loki, it was established by the other giants that they all want to be Nika. Growing up, they all idolize Nika. They don't know what Nika represents. I'll get into more of that later. But since they all want to be sun god, it's not just associated to Loki anymore. But in chapter 1130, dude was talking about Loki, and he said that the world will be brought to ruin whenever Loki gets released. And then at the end of that very same chapter, Loki called himself the sun god. And again, at the end of this chapter, 1136, he said that he would bring the world to ruin. And so it's like 3 times now that he's said something about himself that's related to the sun god. And so I'm wondering if Loki is actually the sun god, or he's just claiming that for himself, just like manifesting it a little bit. Is he Delulu? Is he is he not actually? Or is he just very aspirational? Because Luffy has the devil fruit for it, but that devil fruit is based off of an actual being. And so I'm wondering if this being is like in Elbaf. Is it someone that someone can become? Is it someone that exists? We do know from Dr. Vegapunk's explanation that devil fruits are the creations of people's wishes and dreams or something like that. But since all of these giants grow up wanting to be the sun god, it makes sense that there would be a devil fruit for it. And so Joy Boy was the last person who had it. Now Luffy has it, and none of the giants have it. And then Loki has some type of legendary devil fruit that's not the one that Luffy has, because there aren't any duplicates or anything like that. More about Nika. When it comes to Nika, the giants can't seem to agree on anything. They said that the sun god is the god of liberation or destruction, or the god of laughter. They said that he wants to rule the world. They said no, he doesn't. They say that he brings destruction to the world. They say that he saves the world from destruction. But it's kind of like they don't know whether he's the cause of the destruction or if he's the savior. And they all still want to be him. It just says that the people in power hate it when he shows up. And because he's a harbinger of change. He represents change in the world. And all of that is from bits of the Harley text that is an ancient text within their culture that they can't read anymore. I'm wondering if Robin can read it, because Robin seems to always know different things. Or like you'll mention something, Robin's like, oh yeah, you mean the da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And so I wouldn't be surprised if Robin could read the Harley or knew a bit about the Harley already. And then the last part in this section, they said that the world had been destroyed twice before. We only know of the one time that Vegapunk said the sea rose 200 meters. So that was only once. And so now they say that it has happened twice. And with all of this talk of like the destruction and everything like that, Luffy's kind of like nonchalant about it. He doesn't really care. But I'm thinking back about Madame Charlie on Fishman Island, how she said that she had a vision that Luffy was going to be the one who destroys Fishman Island. And so I'm wondering how that's going to come about, because if you talk about the world being destroyed, the one example that we have is the sea rising. And so if the issue is the sea rising, then I would assume that Fishman Island is the one place that would be the least affected by that. I suppose there are many ways to destroy a world, and the sea rising is just one of them. At the end, in the latter part of this chapter, Zoro kind of steps up and he starts talking to Luffy, pulling him aside, being the guidance that Luffy needs. Like he learned pretty quickly that Luffy made a deal with Loki and everything like that. He's like, Loki's probably lying to you. And he's kind of counseling Luffy, like, I know Shanks is your weakness and everything like that. And he's kind of just there to guide him and make sure that the crew doesn't fall into some issues because Luffy is too gung-ho about Shanks. Nami tags along with Luffy and Zoro to go get the keys to Loki's handcuffs, and are gonna go see if they're gonna free him. So they're gonna get the keys, and then Zoro's like, okay, I'm gonna be the one who decides, which I think is a good call. It's probably the best call. And then Luffy, Zoro, and Nami is a trio that we haven't seen since they were the only people on the crew, which is pretty cool. But they're probably going to go to the castle and see that the guards are wounded. And then that's when things are going to start kicking off within this arc. And the very last thing that happened within this chapter is that the Holy Knights, we now have identified them as Holy Knights with Gunko and the fake Shanks, or the real Shanks, they have invited Loki to join them. Loki said a hard pass. Now they're threatening to kill Loki's pet dog. Loki's like, kill him. I'm gonna be mad. It's just gonna feed my rage. It's that he rejected him. Gunko has this arrow thing that can go through people and tie them up and everything. I'm wondering if that's what might have killed Cobra. Because it was kind of confusing in the panel. I don't know if the arrow came from Emu or if it came from off of the side or anything like that. But an arrow went through Cobra. And if she has that power, I'm wondering if it might be the same type of thing. And so, getting into it, Loki is kind of in this position where we don't know what side he's going to be on. We just know that when he's released, he's going to wreak havoc. We don't know if he's going to be with the crew or against them. We know that the Giants dislike everything that he does. And so I'm seeing a situation in which Luffy and Zoro and Nami talk with Loki and they end up freeing him or something like that. And then you have the rest of the crew who is with the Giants who all hate Loki. And especially Usopp, who is very much with the Giants. And they see that part of the crew has freed their worst enemy. And so now the Giants are turning against Luffy and Zoro and Nami. And then Usopp is faced with picking a side. And Usopp has betrayed the crew once before. And he learned his lesson. But I'm wondering if he might backslide. I'm wondering if he might side with the Giants and we might have a crew that's at odds with each other. That's gonna be crazy if that happens. Because, okay, so you'll have Luffy and Zoro and Nami. They're with Loki. They talk with him. They kind of rationalize things. They freed him. Then you have Sanji up there. You have Usopp. You have Brook, Jinbei, Frankie, Chopper, and Robin. Okay. Usopp is gonna side with the Giants. Because, like, this is Water 7 all over again. We're going to see if he learned his lesson the first time. And this is all just speculation, but I love this speculation. Okay, it might just be Usopp against the crew, because I'm thinking everybody else has, like, sense like that. And not to say Usopp doesn't have any sense, but, like, Robin would be on Luffy's side. Chopper would be on Luffy's side. Or maybe Robin and Chopper are in that library studying up some stuff, and they might know some things that Luffy and Zoro and Nami would need to know. Maybe Robin and Chopper are going to be with Usopp. And then Jinbei is going to be with Luffy, because Jinbei just gave up everything to be with Luffy. Brook, I don't know what he's going to do. Frankie, he's beat up Usopp twice before. He might go with Luffy. And then Sanji might be mad at Zoro for letting Luffy make a decision like that. But yeah, I can see a situation in which a rift in the crew forms. And it's going to be the Giants against Usopp and the Giants against the rest of the crew and Loki. And then fake Shanks is there for some reason. And Luffy can't tell the difference between them because Luffy confused Kaku with Usopp multiple times. So he's not going to notice if a scar is missing or not, if it actually is. He's going to think that's Shanks. And then Zoro is going to have to realize, or Zoro confused him too. I don't know. But Zoro might have to come between Luffy and his fake Shanks or something like that. I can see a situation in which this arc splinters the crew apart from the inside. Doesn't just separate them physically, it separates them emotionally. And that is something that we have never seen before. And I'm just really excited to see where this goes. Okay, Oh, that's all that I have for you today. Hopefully I get this out before the next chapter comes out. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. What do you think is going to happen later now that we are kind of laying out all the groundwork? I'd love to hear them. If you made it this far, leave an emoji in the comments. Do the little girl dancing with the red dress. If you like this video, then like this video. Subscribe and hit the notification bell to get notified whenever I post a video. And I hope you have an awesome rest of your day. All right, bye.